I'd like to call to order the Rossmore Community Service District meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 14th, 7 p.m. Can I please have a call to order?
Director Coletta?
Here.
Director Casey?
Here.
Director Kaler?
Here.
Director Rips?
Here.
President Maynard?
I'm here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start tonight's meeting with a presentation and proclamation to some of our Orange County Sheriff Department investigators. The timing of this week of doing this is actually perfect, given that it's National Law Enforcement Appreciation Week. And as a member of this board, and I think we'd all say we appreciate the work and fine work that our officers do every single day. But as you recall, late last fall, we pretty much hit a very dark moment in our community where a lady was stabbed repeatedly, something that took our community, shocked us, to be honest. And the work that the Sheriff's Department did in its prompt, quick, responsive nature to actually find out who did it, bring the person, apprehend them, literally within, I think, 48 to 72 hours of all our community was in complete shock. And today I want to acknowledge some of these officers for doing an outstanding job beyond the call of duty. So the current investigators that we're going to acknowledge tonight is Joseph Ferrante, Kenneth Olszewski, Lavina Vega, and Margie Sheehan. And if any of you are present, if you can please come on up here, we'd like to acknowledge you. Stand at the podium. And you will have a proclamation in recognition of your professional excellence. And I'm going to just read it out loud so everyone can hear. Whereas the Rossmore Community Service District wishes to recognize these investigators with the Orange County Sheriff's Department for their part conducting an investigation into a highly publicized attempted murder case in the unincorporated community of Rossmore. And whereas the district also wishes to honor the exceptional skill and service of these officers who investigated and solved crimes with sincere passion, dedication, and expertise, thereby protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. And whereas we want to thank the investigators' efforts and the efforts of their fellow investigators, the suspect has been arrested and is awaiting trial. And whereas the investigators' thoroughness and commitment have brought positive recognition to the Sheriff's Department and peace of mind to the community of Rossmore. And whereas the community of Rossmore, its board of directors and staff, hereby extend our sincere gratitude for the teamwork and steadfast resolve that went into solving this crime. And whereas the service and sacrifice of law enforcement personnel is very much appreciated by the citizens of this community. Now therefore, I, Michael Maynard, serving as president of Rossmore Community Service District, do by here award this proclamation in recognition of professional excellence to each and one of you investigators, and want to thank you personally and on behalf of the board for exemplary public service, adopted this day, the 14th day of May 2013.
I am.
Am I supposed to read something?
Yeah. Am I going to flip flop on something? Was I going to flip flop on something? Oh, okay. Yes. You're talking about me. Blood sugar off tonight.
Yeah, pretty much. It's too hot in here. I need air conditioning.
This should totally be like. So did you read the packet? This could be a really quick meeting. Yeah. Sorry about that. This is gonna be like
Since we're still in a law enforcement mood here right now, I'd like to bring up Lieutenant Robert Gunzel, Orange County Sheriff's Department, to provide your quarterly crime statistic report.
Thank you very much. As you can tell, most cops would rather be in a line of fire than have to go through that. So they don't like the attention, they just like working. Okay, for the quarterly crime stats, for the month of March, and we're just talking about Part 1 crimes, and I'll go over what the different numbers mean, but for Part 1 crimes, we have 18 for the month of March, same as that we have for February. January, I think still coming off of Christmas break and things like that. During the holiday season, they tend to spike, and that's the case in January. We had 28 Part 1 crimes. Now on the list, goes from the top being most severe to the least severe, when property crimes being at the bottom. And I'm working on getting a legend for this form. But 187 is homicide, 211 is robbery, 245 is assault with a deadly weapon. The 459 categories are burglaries, residential vehicle, and commercial burglaries. The 459's in there. 47 is a grand theft, 47 is petty theft, 594 is a vandalism, 594 is G is graffiti vandalism, 1051 is a stolen vehicle, and then they just added recovered stolen vehicles to the category. So again, I'm going to work on getting a legend down at the bottom that describes what all these are, but just for your information.
Thank you.
Obviously with the burglaries, burglaries are the most because of the three categories combined. So, but on some of these, and I'll go through specifics on the 3 months that I have here. Some of these things, there was a burglary reported at Kensington, or at one of the elementary schools where no loss was discovered. Two of the residential burglaries, these are all in January, were unforced entries. In other words, people leaving the homes open. If someone enters into a home and steals something, whether it's locked or unlocked, it's still considered a burglary. On two of those also, there's someone, no signs of forced entry, but the loss was jewelry, and then someone entered through a doggy door in another house. So 4 of those for January. Also in January, there's 9 residential burglaries with forced entry on those. Again, a lot of this can be attributed to still being in the holiday season and kids being out of school and things of that nature. So we did have a spike then. Also in January, we had 10 vehicle burglaries. Now I want to stress on the vehicle burglaries, thieves are opportunists, basically. So if someone's leaving something in the car and someone has an intent to take it, they're going to do whatever measures they need, break the window, pop the lock, whatever. And a lot of these, for instance, of the 10 vehicle burglaries, lost was an iPod, lost was a wallet, a laptop computer and a wallet, another laptop, set of earrings, currency, cell phone, laptop, again and again and again. Those are just things that opportunists look for. So it would help us tremendously if people didn't leave valuables, particularly inside their vehicles. There's also a few vehicle thefts from vehicles where the vehicles were left unlocked. Again, there's one where someone took a wallet from a car that was unlocked. Other vehicle thefts, the spare tire taken from the car parked on Main Way, and we'll cover that in just a minute here. In February, there was only 3 residential burglaries. Again, one was an unlocked front door and another was an unlocked sliding rear door. And then force were vehicles, force was used for the residential burglaries. And there was 8 thefts from unsecured vehicles, again in February. Digital camera, laptop computer, currency, iPod, LCD projector, a guitar, and another iPad, all from unsecured vehicles. So this is not helping our cause at all. So, and then another one where someone stole a vehicle in February where they got the keys for the vehicle from an unlocked residence. So they entered the house, took the car keys, and then stole the car. In March, there were 7 residential burglaries, all forced entry. There was 4 vehicle burglaries, 4 of them on Oak Grove alone, backpack, notebooks, currency, cell phone, laptops, and a purse and a wallet. So again, it's just a reoccurring thing. So on the petty theft with the spare tires, there's also 2 of them in March. I want to point out that one of our deputies driving at night through the community actually found someone up on the driveway, and he stopped that subject to ask what he was doing. Through the investigation process in the street, the deputy discovered that the subject was stealing the spare tires. That arrest led to a search of the subject's house. He lived in a nearby community, not here, and his garage was full of spare tires. So we suspect he was taking the tires and selling them. They're mostly Jeep vehicles that are mounted on the back. We think he was selling them on eBay. But anyways, his garage was full of spare tires. So, but he's going to jail for a long time. Okay, some of the things that we've been working on since the last meeting that I was at. We have started an online vacation check system through the RCSD website. We came up with that idea. Elizabeth was instrumental in getting it up and running. They have something very similar in the community of Villa Park. Now, the benefits of that, the person's on a vacation, they could just go online and fill out the form online and then submit it. The email with all the form email comes to me, and then I can, again, forward that to the deputies in the street. Rather than calling dispatch, sometimes being put on hold. It's a very busy area up there, a very busy job. Sometimes getting a dispatcher is not so helpful, let's just say. It's easier just to do it online, and I get it directly. One of the other benefits, if someone changes their vacation plans, they're coming home early or they're staying another day or two, they can just get online and send the email directly to me. Hey, my vacation plans have changed. I'm staying another week, whatever. And I can amend it, where you can't really do that with a paper copy. By the time they call dispatch and they have to redo the form, and it gets sent to us on a fax, and it's an antiquated system. So this is going to work much better. I spoke with Dorothy Fitzgerald about it tonight. Hopefully they'll put out an email blast through the RHA and in the RPMT and make sure that people start using this system now that it's up and running. And then the last thing I want to cover, I'm sure as all of you know, there was a reported child abduction, what it was reported as a child abduction last month. I take some responsibility for the reporting of that, or the lack of reporting of that, and I'll explain that. Sherry Kropp from the LaSalle School District, I think she may have called Dorothy. Someone called me and asked about this incident. Well, I went to our computer dispatch, and there was no calls, anything like it, throughout the entire period that they described. So I said, well, it didn't happen to Rossmore. It may happen in Los Alamitos, maybe Seal Beach, not here. So that went on. Well, Sherry had a responsibility, the LaSalle School District, to her parents to report an incident, and it basically got reported out and hit the media, and then our media representatives called me. Well, I ended up having to hand search our paper logs, which we do on occasion. We have drawers full of them, and I actually found it on a different day that was reported, but I found it. What it was is simply a log item the deputy put down because it didn't amount to a crime, which was appropriate, but once I read it, I had the deputy complete a information report. He sent me an email. If you'd like, I'll read the thing, but it basically describes from the time that he had contact with the victim's mother down to what he did, and I had him just transcribe this into an information report. We went one step further, and I had Investigator Purser do a bolo, be on the lookout, and he did a bolo with a picture of a van that looked similar to. Had our sketch artist come out, it was during spring break, and meet with the girls and did a composite sketch of the person. Again, this still didn't amount to a crime, but it's bothersome. It's something we need to deal with. So we had him do that. Well, that got, we started getting reports of child abduction and people calling and saying their children aren't safe and things of that nature. I was asked by one of the newspapers, the local newspapers, for a comment, and I wrote a pretty detailed email, and he posted my quotes directly into the newspaper. And if it offended some people, I mean, I wasn't rude. I was just very direct on how this thing played out. And so I just want to say, if it offended any of you, I apologize. And we are concerned about something like that happening, but again, Rossmore is a very safe community. The children aren't at risk, things of that, and that was what I was trying to get at. So, that being said, my communication with Los Al School District and with Chris Montana and everything else through all this stuff is really improved. So, to put a positive light on things. Anybody have any questions for me?
Just a comment on the vehicle break-ins and robberies.
Yes, sir.
That since the total is already greater for the first 3 months of this year than it was for the entirety of last year, I get the impression you were attributing most or all of that to crimes of opportunity.
That's all the vehicle thefts are, the vehicle burglaries are. That's all. And I think I have to look at different ways of maybe getting the word out to the community. Not to leave valuables in the car, always lock your vehicles, even when they're in the garage, if your garage door is up, which happens a lot here, to keep your cars locked. And don't keep valuables in them. So, because if you look at the forced entry in the cars, there's very few of them. So it really skews the stats on, the vehicles being left open and having...
Yeah, they're encouraging
valuables
people to break in.
Yeah, basically, it's an easy... I mean, even if a patrol car's on the street, it takes 10 seconds and you're walking away. So, that does make it difficult for us, but I think, like I said, I need to do some sort of outreach and have the community awareness brought up to speed on that, maybe. Look at ways to get that done.
I have a question on the graffiti. Some years we have 0 and sometimes 4, 5, we're already at 4. Is there a common theme with the graffiti? The style that they're painting, the colors that they're painting, is there anything that...
No, it's reported incidents. I mean, there is some graffiti and sometimes it gets taken care of and it's never reported, so it doesn't go on our stats. In fact, the river channel over off of Foster, I know, was an area where that's probably where 4 of them came from, because the gentleman who lives there called and reported it. So I have deputies go out there, take the report, and then check that area daily. In fact, the daytime deputy does that on a daily basis. She checks the river, channel on Foster. If kids are in there, they're getting pulled out and talked to or cited or what have you. So maybe there's none recently because she's been on that, because it was reported to me. I didn't know anything about the graffiti in the river channel until the gentleman called and reported it to me. So.
Okay, I just noticed with my walking my dogs that sometimes I see it on sidewalks. I don't know how long it's been there. And it seems like it's always green and always a certain style that it looks like you just might have.
No, I don't think a color is. I think it's again, opportunity, what they can get their hands on, what kind of paint. And then, graffiti is kind of a way of writing it. It's a combination of Old English and some variations of that. But if you know how to read it, usually it's, whatever affiliation the person's, the tagging crew or a gang, and then his name or something. It's that way in everything. So I bet if I would look at the sidewalk and I could say who wrote it, that doesn't mean I know where he came from. But yeah, sometimes tagging crews aren't essentially gangs, but they're little youngsters who want to make their mark. So yeah, but it's just a matter of reporting it and how that affects the stats. If people start calling them in, they become a stat. If they don't, then our stats are low on that. So
One last question. This is for you, Liz. Do we have a link on our website for this online vacation form?
Yes, we do. On the homepage, under most popular at the very bottom, there's a link called Vacation Check, and then you can fill out the form.
All right, good.
And we just have to get out the community and people start using it, because it is real valuable, being gone and knowing that we'll check your house nighttime, daytime, every shift. Deputies are looking. So
I would like to make a request on the next newsletter that we highlight that somehow, because it will be good timing for when most people go on vacations. If you can put that in our next newsletter and draw attention to it. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much.
Lieutenant, I have a question. I was looking at your first page you placed on the PowerPoint, or Liz assisted you with. It showed the first quarter for 2013. Do you have that as in hard copy in front of you?
Yes, I do.
My concern was the residential burglaries for the first quarter for 2013 or 21. And that's irrelevant of whether they're forced entries or they walked into a home where the door was unlocked or a window was unlocked. A
Right.
burglary, by definition, is any entry into any opening that's an occupied dwelling.
Right.
And you look at 2012, and we have 44 residential burglaries. And again, it's irrelevant that the manner in which they entered. They're still residential burglaries. Is it correct for me to conclude that for the first quarter, this is not for 2013 to be referred exclusively or defined or painted with the broad brushstroke as a crime of opportunity, but rather that there is a group of people out there that are basically continuing to take advantage of our castles and come during the daytime and do these thefts?
Yes, that is the conclusion. And if you look at the actual breakdown of the burglaries, almost every one of them is the loss is jewelry. So again, that's up to our investigative crew to work the pawn shops and things like that and try and find clues as to, because a lot of these things there is no evidence left. In fact, one we had, they went right in the master bedroom, didn't touch anything else, took jewelry and left.
It's like they knew what they were looking for.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking for a certain thing, and that's what they go in there and take. And it's not a ransack of the entire house; it's a ransack of the master bedroom.
You know, I hate to say it, but it almost sounds like it's an inside job.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out based on. I mean, if you know anything about, let's say if you're a criminal and you know Rossmore, I have deputies drive around here that get lost. I can't imagine just someone picking this community and go, let me drive through here and find a house, because they happen all over, not on the outlying streets. So, and the subject of the assault with a deadly weapon that that honored the investigators tonight, the guy was wanted for burglaries. He lived here, so obviously he knows this area. So when you say inside job, I assume that's what you mean, is someone who lives in the area.
I think it could be trades that people bring in, those that are very comfortable, they're in and out of the community, and they pass information on it, and I don't know how to stop that. But looking at the number for the first quarter of 2013, it won't be long by second quarter close, we'll be competing neck and neck with the closure of last year, and that just really concerns me.
Well,
Last year was high.
it also concerns me, Mr. Coletta. Trust me, and as you know, I think the last quarter we reported, we put out it was when we had the spike in burglaries the last quarter of last year. We had 17 investigators all undercover in here, and we didn't arrest anybody. So it is a difficult thing, as you know, to catch someone in the act of doing it. We rely on our HA and RPM team, people like that, to be our eyes and ears out here. But yeah, we do need to put probably, I'd have to come up with something to, let people know. And it's all over the board, securing your house. Well, the people with the side doors, the way a lot of homes are constructed, they get behind the backyard gate and they kick in a side door. Or there's glass on the side door and they knock out the glass and unlock the door. Again, you're in the house in a minute and out in 2 minutes. So it's a very hard thing. We could put 50 deputies on the street, and that doesn't matter.
I'm aware of that, and I appreciate you saying that, but that isn't still going to cure the issue.
Right. Mr. Casey, you have anything else? Looked like you were going to ask something.
No, that's all I have.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our section B here. I do not believe we have any additions to the agenda. So we'll move on to public forum. Any person may address the Board of Directors at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the Rossmore Community Service District. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff at the discretion of the board for a report and action at a subsequent board meeting. Please note that anything that's on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity on that subject to speak as well. But let's take it from here. Please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Mike Wilson. I'm here to introduce myself as the president-elect of LAGSL, Los Alamitos Girls Softball. I'm also here to introduce my friend Don Smith, who is going to be representing the neighborhood liaison position that we have on the board. I'll be taking over for John Giacomini. He'll be taking over for Chad Stewart. Just wanted to let you guys know that we look forward to working with you for anything that concerns LAGSL.
Great. Thank you. So now, I don't see any other people wanting to participate. We'll move to reports to the board. First up, we have a CIP Public Works Committee report regarding our FY 2012-2013 project list and recommendations for the fiscal year 2013-2014 project list.
Mr. President and directors of the board, the CIP Public Works Committee met on April 18th to review the current state of the 2012-2013 CIP project list and the Fund 40 budget. The total funds available in Fund 40 per the amended budget were $289,788. So based on that limited balance, the committee had to reprioritize projects to be completed during this current fiscal year. Also keeping in mind which funds would be needed to fund projects for the next fiscal year. So after review and discussion and analysis, the committee recommended the following projects to be authorized and completed in 2012-2013. Should I go on and discuss those projects?
Yes.
Okay. They recommended for the Rossmore Park remote lighting by Musco to be completed in the amount of $9,276. And that's included in this agenda as item H1. The committee also recommended the replacement of the Montecito Center Gate by Marina Security for $8,900 or a higher amount if the committee was split about the powder coating option. And that's included as agenda item H2. Also for 2012-2013 Fund 40 budget, the committee recommended the replacement of the HVAC system by South Bay Heating and Air Conditioning in an amount of $24,400, and that's included in this agenda as item H3. And finally, they recommended the construction of the Rossmore sign at the ARCO station, which I've just learned in the last couple of days that we have received a permit for from the county, and that's an estimated cost of $8,000, which is to include permits as well, but to be included on a future agenda.
The Rossmore, the ARCO Rossmore is a future, or?
No, well, it's not included. The approval of that, the construction costs aren't included in this agenda tonight because we still need to get the actual construction costs and the permits. We don't have that. We do have, just a couple days ago, we received the permit from the county. It has been picked up by the contractor. We'll be meeting next week at the site, to see how it's going to fit and proceed from there. So after those were approved, after those projects were discussed and approved, and other projects canceled, that left us with $225,000 in funds available for 2013-2014 projects. The CIP committee recommends that the following 4 projects be included in the 2013-2014 budget. First one, upgrade auditorium lamp fixtures and emergency lighting. This is mainly to resolve safety issues related to the wiring that needs to be replaced. Also, the tot lot rehab to bring it up into ADA compliance and to resolve safety issues. $150,000 it was recommended to be allocated. Parking lot repair rehab, $25,000 was recommended to be set aside, and $16,050 was recommended to be set aside for remaining Rossmore Shopping Village signage. And staff recommends to receive this report of the CIP Public Works Committee recommending revised 2012-2014 project lists and proposed budgets for inclusion in the 2013-2014 preliminary budget. So this doesn't involve actually authorizing the projects. That's in the section H's of the agenda.
So you're recommending that we simply receive the report as it
Yes.
as it stands? All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, you may.
Okay, in terms of and I know the playground the monies are going to be allocated if we approve it for next year.
Correct.
Is the Rossmore Park is currently ADA compliant, I believe. Is that true?
Yes. Also, I have Mr. J.C. Bush here to answer any questions about compliance, ADA compliance, safety compliance. If you have any questions, you could ask him. He would be the best person.
Do you have any questions? I didn't ask you.
You might just want to give them some background on how you put together the master plan and how we.
Yes, I'm sorry, I missed your question, Mr. Casey?
Well, my question was simply whether or not the Rossmore Park playground equipment and the setup with the padding and the sand, et cetera, was ADA compliant right now.
When I conducted the initial playground audit, and I believe that was about a year and a half ago, there were some minor maintenance issues, but other than that, the design and the general playground equipment and surfacing was compliant with the current CPSC, ASTM, and ADA guidelines.
Okay, have we done whatever those maintenance involved was to make it compliant? Does anyone know?
Yeah.
I haven't been back to the park to...
No, I understand that.
These were maintenance issues that were addressed by staff. It required additional sand, a few minor things that it needed, and that was...
Okay, so the answer is yes. Okay. That's really all I have at this time.
Okay.
So at this point, is your recommendation just to receive the reporters? Does it make sense to have discussion about any line item now, or to wait later on when we get to that agenda item?
Well, the purpose of the CIP committee, I guess it would be to receive the report, and but also to discuss any item you may have an issue with. These items were included in agenda item D2 in the preliminary budget, but the CIP committee met, spent time going all through the details, and made changes to my recommendations, and this is what we came up with.
Okay.
So maybe, I'm sorry to interrupt, President. Maybe one of the CIP members can delve into this and provide some more details as to, this is a very round number, 150,000. It doesn't seem real to me. It sounds very like, sounds like somebody just pulled it out of the air. And when I was reading the material, there was like multiple options, like replace this, do this, pull this out, don't do this. And I never saw that 150,000 figure once. It was like 100. It was 178,000, 225,000, 65. It was
correct.
There was multiple numbers flying around. So I don't know how real and what this actually represents. And so if we need to talk about it tonight and decide tonight, I think we should. And then also, this isn't a trivial project. This is kind of a large expense. And so, I mean, we're May. The fiscal year starts July 1. When are we anticipating starting this work, and what's the time frame? And I don't know whether we have this discussion now because we won't meet again until July, but throwing it on the table.
Jeffrey, did you?
JC, it would be great if you can come and address some of those.
Okay.
He's obviously.
And then if you're not satisfied with his questions about how we came about to the 150,000, then I can help you out there.
Yeah, I wish the package would have had if you're going to reference this 150,000, it should have broken down. This is option A, 150,000. Option B, 100,000. Option C, 190,000. Instead of just, we think it's 150, but we're not sure. It could be, a lot more.
There's more to, go ahead.
Well, what happened is at our last meeting, prior to the meeting, I was asked to present about 3 different options for the playground project, which was option 1, which was just retrofitting the existing equipment that we had to bring it up to compliance, and then doing just the minimum surfacing in order to meet the accessibility guidelines. The next option was then to redo the entire playground project, and then a second option of that with different equipment to redo the whole playground. And then a third option of simply replacing the non-compliant playground equipment and leaving the existing boat structure there.
Okay.
And then the last option was just to do surfacing. So we looked at different varieties of what the different costs would those be. And they ranged all the way from $126,000 all the way up to about $250,000. Once we kind of looked at those options and the different pros and cons of those, the committee then came up with a number of $150,000 is what we wanted to shoot for the budget. That's how much money that they thought could be allocated for the project, and they wanted the numbers for the playground project to come in line with that expectation. So after the meeting, I then went back and redid the designs, and now we have 2 options, and it's mainly replacing the equipment, but just different varieties of how we're doing the surfacing in order to meet what the committee came up with the budget. And those are the options that I believe the committee has from that perspective.
So we gave you a budget number, and then you worked around that first?
Yes, correct.
As opposed to asking you for a quote and then,
Well, no,
and then going from there?
He gave us figures, and he just shared with you the different figures, and we said, well, we can't afford that, basically. We looked at all of where we were with our
And we
budget.
said-
We think we can allocate $150,000 for this project.
We like option 3, which was $172,000. See if you can get it for us for $150,000. And this was for the budgeting purpose,
Mr.
for
Kaler?
budgeting purposes.
Mr. Taylor? There was a particular discussion towards the end of the CIP committee meeting which focused upon JC's ability to procure hardware in a manner that was different than a nominal approach that was initially communicated as to how it would be accomplished. Do you remember that discussion, JC?
Yes,
Could
yes.
you share that with Mr. Kaler and the rest of the board?
In regards to how we came up with the $150,000 mark, or what was?
How we were going to maximize our purchase with $150,000, meaning buy perhaps
Oh, okay.
a little more than what we.
Yeah, so the initial quotes I got were just initial quotes. I had not pushed back to the vendor yet to say, we needed to tighten up the numbers. It was just an initial kind of figures to give us a general budget of what the cost was going to be. Once I met with the CIP committee, I then went back to the vendor and pushed back and to consolidate the numbers better and get us a better bang for our buck, pretty much. And that's the options that I presented to I think the committee has in front of them today as what our 2 options are in regards to.
Actually, they don't. That was information that we received after the agenda went out.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I've pushed back to the vendor, and now it looks like the lowest in order to do the project.
Which was option 3.
Option 3, which would be to remove the existing 5 to 12 structure that's non-compliant, the boat structure 2 to 5 structure, remove all.
Which is how old?
Which is probably about 10 years old, but it's going to be, one of the recommendations that I recommended from the committee was that if we're going to spend the money on fixing the 5 to 12 structure, and we're going to have a brand new, beautiful structure, and it's going to be all compliant up to code. The 5 to 12 structure, which is about 10 years old or so, if not older, is beginning to show wear. The paint is beginning to chip off. You're seeing little bits of rust here and there, and you're seeing it begin to fade and be old. What my concern was that if we fixed the 5 to 12 structure, then put new surfacing and did all that, eventually, maybe 5 years down the line, we would have to take that 2 to 5 structure out and replace it with a new structure. And then we'd have to rip out that PIP, do all the work again, and it would double the cost of doing that. So my recommendation...
The PIP is the pour-in-place.
Is the poured-in-place rubber surfacing. So my recommendation is that we bundle everything together, get the best price, and take both structures out in order to make them both compliant, and then put the surfacing in to make it accessible and inclusive over the whole playground. And that was where we went back into the CIP committee. In order to replace all the equipment and remove all the sand and put rubber surfacing over the entire playground, it came to about $187,000, which was above the budget that we had for $150,000. So I re-looked at it and went back to the vendor, re-looked at the design, and what we came back was a price of about $149,000 of replacing both the 5 to 12 structure, replacing the 2 to 5 structure, and then removing partial parts of the sand in order to make the playground accessible and meet the accessibility guidelines. So leaving the playground about 50-50. So 50% of those playground surfacing would be the rubber surfacing, 50% would be the sand in order to make it compliant with the guidelines. And that would keep us below the budget of $150,000.
Does sand interfere with the pour and play? Does it actually, like sandblasting, if you will, does those work well together?
There are pros and cons. There is no perfect surfacing material. Whether you have wood chips, whether you have sand, whether you have gravel, whether you have PIP, or shredded rubber, all of them have pros and cons. Over time, yes, it will start to fade. You know, sand is abrasive. It does the same thing to the playground equipment. Over time, it will become corrosive, I should say. What my recommendation is that if we need to stay within that $150,000 budget, we can do that, do the rubber surfacing where it needs to be, and then at a later date, we can then remove the sand and put in the rest of it PIP at minimum cost at a future date. Maybe even get a grant for that from Integrated Waste Management. They give grants for using used tires and turning it into playground surfacing. So that may be an option, and that would be the least intrusive and most cost-effective, because it would be just very easy to take the sand out, put a concrete base, put more PIP in there, even a different color to make a design, and you wouldn't even be able to tell that had been done at a future date. So it gives the city an option of making it fully inclusive at less cost.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I have a question for the two committee members. It seems that you guys had different points of view on the Montecito Center gate. So I don't know which one is for the powder coating and which one's not.
May I suggest that we discuss that during item H? Well, it's also on the agenda to authorize the project, so I think that might be more suitable for that discussion.
Well, I asked that originally when we should talk. Is it now or there? And so I have no
Well,
problem with that.
the gate, I mean, the playground, that's not on the agenda to be actually authorized, but the gate is. That's the difference.
Okay.
Is there any more questions that I can answer for the?
Just one last thing. Is it your opinion that if we went with half sand and half pour in place now, and that, let's say, 5 years from now, we decided to do the rest of the project, that the original pour in place would not be too compromised from the effects of the sand on the surface?
No, not at all. And what I would recommend done is, which I've done before, is where we would cut away. The way we're going to do it is you would do the poured-in-place surfacing on a concrete base. And then where it meets with the sand, it would transition down like a ramp into the sand.
Okay.
So when we take the sand out and decide to do the entire thing in rubber, what I would recommend is that the contractor would then cut the ramp and make it flush, and then bond that rubber together with the other rubber. And then it should be perfectly fine with no issue. And I would recommend a different color so it doesn't show, because what happens over time is it's going to fade. So if you put old blue and new blue together, you'll notice a difference. But let's just say you put blue and tan, you would just think that it had always been that way.
Right, it'll just be a nice
Yes.
color scheme.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Correct.
you.
Correct.
Director Casey, we replaced the pour-in-place at Rossmore Park 5 years ago.
Right.
It's now a combination of blue carpet, pour-in-place, and sand, and you cannot tell that there's been any deterioration of that carpet since that was done.
Yeah, the last time I saw that playground and the equipment and the combination, it looked great to me. And the kids seem to be enjoying it.
Sand.
JC, thanks for the explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So is there a motion to receive this report? Is that
I'll motion.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're on report number 2, the Budget Committee report, preliminary and an annual salary plan.
Mr. President and members of the board, the Budget Committee met on May 2nd and reviewed the preliminary budget as board policy requires to be prepared. All funds were looked at. I presented a little different from prior years in that I had a summary page with each of the funds, and I also included the beginning fund balances available and an estimate of what the ending fund balances available would be. And after review and discussion, the Budget Committee recommends that you receive this preliminary budget and annual salary plan, and that we bring these documents back at the June 11th meeting with any revisions for further review and input from the community. And as well, and also we'll have a publication for the budget hearing as well in the newspaper. But there's a lot of detail if you have any questions about anything specific. Staff spent a lot of time putting it together. Let's see.
I just want to thank the staff personally for all of the work that they've done putting this budget together. I know it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. It's tedious, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
We'll open it up to comments or questions that anyone might have for the staff or to the committee at this point.
No, there was, is that his transfer and attorney fees.
I know that's our recommendation. Sorry, I just didn't see it.
I guess there's just one thing that kind of stands out that should be mentioned, just so everyone realizes that Fund 40, our capital improvements fund, that's only funded by transfers from others. There aren't any property taxes that are specifically allocable, though, to that fund in particular. So in the future, if we wanted to, invest in more capital improvements at some point in time, we'd have to make a transfer from the general fund.
Exactly.
Is there a motion to
I was going to
receive?
say, if there's no one has any comments or questions of the staff, I'll open it up for a motion.
So is the motion just to accept the budget as is, or with?
Yes, to accept the preliminary budget And then to bring it back at the June 11th meeting with any revisions, further input.
That's the motion I make. Right
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the next consent calendar. Consent items are expected to be routine, non-controversial, to be acted upon the Board of Directors at one time. If any board member requests that an item be removed from the consent calendar, it shall be removed, so that it may be acted on separately. Does anyone have an item they would like to bring forward? Okay, I'll make the motion to receive the consent calendar as is. All in favor? I'm sorry, is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, moving to our regular calendar, let's move to item H1, execute agreement with Musco Lighting, Rossmore Park Remote Lighting System.
Mr. President and members of the board, as you will recall, this item was brought to you at the March 12th meeting, where I recommended the approval of the Musco Lighting proposal to upgrade the Rossmore Park's remote lighting system. The upgrade removes the dial-up function. It makes remote access possible for controlling park lighting via satellite, and it provides smartphone capabilities. The upgrade would also include on-site tech support and 24/7 access to live scheduling operators. Staff conducted the recommended research, which included the Rossmore Park lighting assessment and reaching out to other lighting providers for quotes. Based on additional findings regarding the age of the current lighting system and the recent lighting system failure that caused the walkway lights to lose functionality for over a week, the need for the update has become more urgent. The cities of Los Al, Cypress, and Long Beach highly recommended Musco Lighting. The findings were presented to the CIP committee on April 12th. And based on the information provided, the CIP committee recommended approval of the upgrade in the amount of $9,276. And that amount includes sales tax, which wasn't included with the first proposal. The proposal is attached. One concern that the board had was whether there was the ability to add more zones if for some reason the district determined that more lighting was needed. So included in the CIP packet was the lighting assessment. Also, which the only additional lighting that we could think of, we already have it on the walkways, basketball courts, playground, would maybe be the softball fields, but we think that we might have some opposition to that. Also, if you look on the quote, there are 7 zones, and you can actually add into those zones. For example, if there was a need for additional lighting, you could, what's the right word? Plug, Emily, just... Huh? Yeah, you could tie in to the zones.
So it's still 7 zones. You can just put more amps or watts into each zone if needed.
Right.
And it would probably be adequate for some time. I mean, it's not just a little you could add in, it's probably quite a bit.
Right.
That's the way I read this.
And they're highly recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, I see that.
Why did we go from a March 12th quote of $8,700 to a May 14th price of $9,200?
Sales tax.
Yeah, I noticed.
I caught that.
$500 in tax, okay.
Yeah, the
So-
7.75%, that's the difference.
Okay.
I make a motion that we execute the agreement with Musco Lighting.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I think the motion passed. Was,
Yes.
okay. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is execute agreement with Marina Security Gate and Ironworks to install a new Montecito Center security gate.
This is another item that was included in the 2012-2013 budget, and it was also brought to the board at the March 12th meeting. at that time, staff was asked to have the vendor remove verbiage saying that they would not be liable for any damage done to electric cables or underground utilities. There won't be any digging to install the gate, and the vendor was more than happy to remove that verbiage. It was just, boilerplate that they have on their proposals. And then also, I did discuss with them the powder coat, researched it some more. The one problem with the powder coating is that it has to be applied off-site. So that say, it's powder coated and, it starts to wear away 10, 12 years, you'd actually have to remove the gate, take it to a facility and have it reapplied. And it just seemed really inconvenient. There's a picture that I supplied you with of a gate that was installed by Marina Gate that is not powder coated, that's between 15 and 20 years old and seems to be in good condition. And after discussions with the CIP committee, I recommend that we enter into the agreement with Marina Gate. They seem to be the premier vendor, and they've been in business for over 60 years.
Okay. I believe this was the item where you, Director Rips, and you, Director Coletta, had different points of view. So now would be a good time to share your points of view.
Well, we were definitely in concurrence that we should replace the gate.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure that was.
Okay, the gate.
Can I just ask, can I just interject one thing? Are you guys also in concurrence that you go with the expanded metal?
Actually, we took the expanded mesh out and it lowered the price.
It says expanded metal. Should that have read
Mesh. Oh, that was the option, the 900 option. That's not included with the.
Okay, so their suggestion of expanded metal has been removed.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the quote has also come down because of that. The original, let's see. The original quote was $9,050. So we decided that the mesh wasn't necessary. We don't have it on there now. It's just like a metal mesh that would cover the entire gate, and that brought it, by removing that, it brought the quote down to $8,150.
Okay.
What's the purpose of the mesh, for aesthetics or otherwise?
Well, I guess to keep someone from putting their hand through.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think it's not for aesthetics because it would be, I think, less attractive with a mesh. It'd probably look like a prison, but.
The gates at my house have mesh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I don't like them.
Sorry, Ron.
I'm going to go back to my question.
And also, it would require additional maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to my question that someone is recommending a 8,900 gate and someone's recommending a 10,900 gate, and I'd like to understand each one's point of view.
So, I'll just, I think that, and Director Coletta, jump in if I'm mistaken here, I think we actually both thought powder coating is a good thing. I felt that having to actually remove the gate whenever we needed to actually do any repairs, if we wanted to repaint it, re-powder coat it, was the inconvenience of that, plus the lack of security having that gate off. And with the fact that I do believe that the gate will last a good long time without it being powder coated, and I think that the convenience of having our staff being able to go out there, even with Rust-Oleum, black Rust-Oleum, to repaint if they need to on site, makes it A, less expensive to keep up in the future, and B, much more convenient, and keeps with our safety of having that gate there. So I came in on the side of we don't need to have it powder coated, that it's not powder coated now, it's holding up, that we can keep it in good condition with just going out there, spray painting it. We'll always have the gate there, and we'll be able to do it on site. I think that was where we differed. But
Alfred?
My view was that the powder coating would be a good base to have before color is applied. Color would come after. The powder coating is a powder and a resin, and then it goes into an oven, and it's also charged electrically a particular way. And then you would put the color on top of the wrought iron. Given that would be the foundation for what would be underneath the paint, my belief is then thereafter persons like O'Mara or someone else would do the maintenance of touch-ups as needed prior to a 10-year or 15-year mark where there might be market wear on the paint and or beyond the surface of what the eye would see. So it's just a better foundation. It's something that's, mine just a little research online, it's been around for like 60 years. It started in Germany with custom cars and custom parts and custom type of machinery, and so it's not imperative, no. It's just a better foundation, and I just think over a time, if one goes out there every couple of years and touches up, I would hope, there's no guarantee, but that the powder coat would provide a better foundation. And
I know.
given our proximity to the
Getting ready for that.
coast, we're about 5 miles away. That was my belief, a month ago. It still is, but it's not a guarantee. There is no guarantee with or without. It's just a better foundation, and I think if you are curious, you can go online later.
It's actually unclear to me, and this is maybe a little bit confusing. I didn't actually think you could, first of all, powder coating, I've had things powder coated with the color on it, and it wasn't painted afterwards, but I wasn't sure that you could actually paint on top of powder coating, that once you powder coated, you needed to continue powder coating it when you wanted to redo it. Is that?
You could paint on top of it.
You can paint on top of powder
Yes.
coat, not an issue. The paint will just adhere to it.
Yeah, the other point of the matter is, I thought, given the size of the gate, it sounds like it's a lot of money for personal residences. I know that for say a 3x6 or 3x5 gate, they're $200 a piece to send out from the, say, a wrought iron manufacturer to a vendor who does that. Most wrought iron manufacturers don't have that oven on site. They send it off site. And that seems to be the thing. They're all over the place, these places that have these ovens and do this powder coating. But given the size of the gate, it's probably within reason $1,000 to $2,000. So it is what it is.
But this lighting company says if we wanted it to have another coating, they would take the whole thing off for a week. That's my biggest concern is.
But I think what we're saying, what I'm understanding is that we would do it the first time. We wouldn't necessarily do it ever again.
That's my
But the first time would give us a stronger gate. This is what you're saying, correct? That do it the first time, it would give a stronger gate. And we would touch it up, as I was saying, we would touch it up. But I think the premise is that the powder coating gives you a stronger foundation. That's
my position, and it's a one-time thing. I don't think it's prudent to take the gate off, and the point of the matter is of maintenance is to do the maintaining of the matter before it gets to the point where it has to come off. To me, then it sounds like you get some deterioration that you're concerned about. It's already begun to etch, and it's been shown for a while, and you finally get around to taking that part off, that part of the fence off. You can take it off. I hope we don't go to that point. But that was my concern, and I'm all for the gate. We need a gate.
We need a gate.
I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
So the matter is whether to do the extra $2,000 or not. I don't think it's a showstopper either way.
Either do I. Yeah.
Anybody
Can
I just
about powder coating?
Yes.
Him. Can you come up to the microphone, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My profession is security. I work in the security industry.
Perfect.
The one thing that I do know about powder coating is that if it chips, you have to repowder coat it. You can't paint over it, because once it chips and it's exposed to the oxygen and the air, then the rust can start. So that's the downside of powder coating, is that if it chips for any reason, you can't just paint over it. You have to pull it and you got to repowder.
Is it just for aesthetics? I thought it was to help with like corrosion.
It absolutely helps with corrosion. Most powder coating thing, like I don't know if any of you own boats or if you own things, the towers on boats that pull the skiers, most of those are powder coated because of the corrosion being in water, right? So it is for protection, greater protection. But again, if it's chipped or anything like that, then you're going to lose that protection and you have to have it repowder coated.
Interesting. I was told you could paint over it, but that's good
Well, you could, but
advice.
is it preferred? No.
You could, you shouldn't. That's,
Shouldn't,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yes,
You should, you should.
because it's
be able
already
to-
compromised.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
So I think before we move on, I need to see if the majority agrees to powder coat or not, because,
Well, yeah, clearly that's what we're having a
Yeah, that's
conversation
our
about.
issue.
We have to give you the
We
direction.
have to, someone has to make a motion on one of these options and take a vote on it.
I make a motion that we do the gate project and have it powder coated.
Is there a second to that
Wait a
motion?
minute, with or without, did you say?
He said with.
Oh, with.
He said with.
WITH.
All right.
I'll make the second because that's something I do think is necessary.
Okay.
okay. Then I'm going to have to change my recommendation. The preferred vendor that I had, which was Marina Security, they, after the agenda had gone out, they had told me that due to the size of the gate, that they were unable to obtain a specific quote for the powder coating and more or less would not be able to do it. So if the board is for the powder coating, I'd like to amend my recommendation to go with a different vendor.
Well, we haven't voted the whole group of the board yet.
I know, I want to
so-
amend my recommendation. Oh,
Shouldn't you have told that earlier? Shouldn't you have known?
it's actually,
It is here on
we
page 201.
we added it.
But what's-
But if the powder coating wasn't an issue, and I didn't think it would be, because I don't think it's necessary. I think that with Omero's maintenance, spotting it up every couple of years, I've discussed this with him,
Yeah.
that the regular paint would be fine. And
That's what I think.
so I thought that it would be passed without the powder coating, but now that I see that the board seems to fit, the majority perhaps favors the powder coating, then I'd like to amend my recommendation to use a different vendor.
Well, who is that?
Well, just
Okay.
before we go on, the recommendation, the motion was for what?
For powder,
For
Director?
a powder coated
Coating.
gate.
To authorize the agreement with Marina Security Gate.
We live 4 miles
Really?
from
Wait,
the
I thought it was
ocean,
just,
that's all.
I'm just making sure I understood. I thought
Okay.
the motion was just to get a gate that was powder coated. I didn't hear anything about who we were doing it with.
Well, that was part of this whole agenda item.
Well, that's part of the agenda item, but that
Okay.
wasn't actually the motion.
No. The motion wasn't to approve Marina Security Gate. The
Okay.
motion was to.
Okay, you're right.
Okay, okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that was clarified then.
I don't care
Okay.
who does the powder coating, okay? As long as it
Okay.
doesn't go over whatever it is that we have budgeted.
He was just saying, his motion was that we should get a gate with powder coated.
Yes.
That's right.
So, and
Okay.
that's the motion that's on the table.
Okay, let's put it up for a vote. And this is all in favor for those who want a powder-coated gate, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay,
Okay, so we now have,
Liz?
But now I'll make a motion
okay,
that we execute the agreement with Marina Security Gate for a gate that is not powder coated.
Second.
okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
One abstention.
And one abstention. Okay,
Thank you.
there we have it.
Sorry about the confusion here. Jumped ahead.
Okay. Next, we have execute agreement with South Bay Heating and Air Conditioning for replacement of various components of the auditorium's HVAC system.
And I just also want to mention that the items that I have included in H for authorization at tonight's meeting were all in the 2012-2013 budget.
That's what I thought. I thought we had already approved the project, so.
Right, but we didn't authorize the
work,
proposals, but we
yeah.
approved the
Yeah.
budgeted amounts. Yes, the vendors. Okay. So, agenda item H3, Mr. President and members of the board. Item H3 is to execute agreement with South Bay Heating and Air Conditioning for replacement of various components of the auditorium's HVAC system. And the recommendation is to authorize general manager to enter into an agreement with South Bay Heating and Air Conditioning for replacement of several components of auditorium's HVAC system. would you like me to review the background on that, or you?
Actually, I got 2 H4s in my binder, so if someone can lend me, or I don't have an H3. Thanks.
I probably need mine.
I think it would be prudent if you spelled out what the several items were.
Okay.
Here. He just gave me his, so.
Do you mind if I have Henry address that, only because he's been involved more so with the history of it, and I feel that he's a little more knowledgeable than I am. Would be able to answer your questions a little better.
Mr. President, members of the board, in the 7 years that I've been here with the district, we've had continuous issues with the peripheral and the roof-mounted air conditioning unit that supplies HVAC to this particular configuration of the building, and to the peripheral areas that are not serviced by the 20-ton unit, such as the east room, west room, storage spaces, et cetera. Over that period of 7 years, we've had continuous failures of the compressor units that are peripheral to the exterior of the east and west walls of the building. We've had one stolen. We've had 2 that have broken down, one which is broken down at the moment. We had to replace another one because it was feeding carbon monoxide, into the office spaces of the Public Works Department and the West Room. During this period, we also replaced the 15-ton unit on the roof with this vendor at a very cost-effective price. And what's left to accomplish is the remaining peripheral units, which are in a declining state of serviceability. They've outlived their service life, and it's time to bring the whole system up to a standard that we can of reliability, and it's the appropriate time, I think, to bring the whole system up and have it function for years to come. This particular vendor has given us good service, and when your playground consultant talked about pushback, we were able to push back this particular bid to under the threshold for a prevailing wage and competitive bidding. And I think it's a cost-effective use of your money and a system reliability. We recommend that you authorize this agreement.
I make a motion with the agreement with South Bay Heating and Air for this work.
Second.
All in favor of executing this agreement, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, let's move to H4. This is the first reading of policy number 3097, email and electronic communications retention.
One second, please. I do. Thank you. We've actually had, I know I've had discussions about this with a few of the directors, just based on the ever-growing, ever-increasing growth of technology, as well as issues that we've seen in the news regarding public officials and emails and the use of personal laptops, et cetera, to retrieve local government, state government emails, et cetera. In conversations that we've had with our legal counsel, we recommend the adoption. Actually, tonight we just recommend we want to recommend the acceptance of the first reading of the new RCSD policy for email and electronic communications retention. We actually had our legal counsel review this, and he was so impressed that he asked if he could use it.
Actually, that was Brea IT.
Oh, Brea, I'm sorry.
Brea
Brea IT was so impressed that they wanted to know if they could use it for some of their other
I'm sure our legal
clients.
counsel was very, very impressed.
Right, but they were impressed as well and reviewed this in detail.
Yeah.
But we feel that it's necessary and prudent for the district to have.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you,
It's the
I'll
first
open it up for
reading, I don't-
discussion. It's a first reading, but anyone has any questions, comments?
I
Now-
noticed on the table this evening was this email.
Yes, that's the email from Brea.
It appears that it's in agreement with whoever this Mr. Ryan is.
Yes, Mike Ryan. He's the IT supervisor.
Now, so there's not a motion to accept it, but just to accept it as the first reading, but not to adopt it.
Understood.
That would be at next month's meeting.
Yeah.
So we don't need a motion, we just need to make
No,
our
just
comments.
accept it. There was one,
But now's the time to, if you have any comments, if you see typos, if you see anything, now's
yeah,
the time to
there was
give
one
this to them.
typo.
So please.
That was on page 2 of the document. It's in item number 2, public records subject to retention. It's about halfway down the page on the right-hand side, and it says, however, all persons using the city's email, it should say the district's.
I noticed that,
email.
actually. I noticed that today, and I've already corrected it.
See, there you go. How about that?
Anyone have any comments?
Well, we know that Ron's done his first reading.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. I don't have to read it again now.
I already told him. I'm good.
Are you good?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Do we make a motion on that?
There's no need
Just
for
a
a
first
motion.
reading.
Receive the first reading and bring back for adoption at next month's meeting.
So we're supposed to make a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept it as a first reading and bring it back.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Liz, great job.
Yeah, very nice. Agenda item H5.
And I hope it's there.
This is a citizen request of Van Zietz Ralph. I don't even want to even take a stab at pronouncing his last name. Modification of board policy regulations.
Bartabadian.
Bartabedian, yeah.
Thank you. For use of Rossmore and Rush Parks for organized girls softball.
Talk about timing.
Wow.
Of course.
No kidding.
So, Ms. Montana, why don't you read us through the background, and then we'll open it up for
Okay.
comments.
In accordance with board policy, Mr. Zeitz and Vartabadian have made separate but like matters regarding the use of Rossmore and Rush Park softball diamonds by the Los Alamitos Girls Softball League. Included are the emails from the two gentlemen. Mr. Vartabadian's email spells out his position regarding the intent and/or language of the current 2011 MOU. Further, Mr. Zeitz is requesting that the board review his previous presentation to the board regarding his analysis of the parking requirements for public recreational facilities. However, the request for placement on our May agenda is not timely. Our board policy requires no less than 2 weeks' notice. Nonetheless, this matter is being brought to your attention with the recommendation that the board table discussion until a future board meeting. This will enable staff to gather all of the documentation which pertains to this issue and present a thorough, comprehensive report to the board. Recommendation is to table discussion for a future board meeting.
Okay. I will open this up since Ralph or anyone is here to approach the board as a public comment before we come back to the table and take a recommendation. If you would like to come up.
Tell you, timing is everything. It's quite impressive.
Hi, thank you very much. You know who I am. I'm Ralph Vartabadian from Hedwig Road in Rossmore. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. I think the emails that I sent kind of set out what we were seeking. I think that there's been quite a bit of reduction in the number of participants in the league, such that we don't think it would damage the league to make this reduction. It's something that was discussed in the MOU, and we advanced a plan to actually accomplish that by upgrading the field here. We actually put a lot of thought into that effort, and the Rossmore Homeowners Association pledged $5,000 to accomplish it. And I believe the league offered to make in-kind contributions of labor, and the district even undertook quite an investment in a preliminary step by constructing a fence. And then after all of that transpired, the league said that it really didn't want to schedule any additional games at this facility, which I understand is their prerogative, but the fact remains the MOU kind of set forth a proposal to have this game reduction based on a lot of experience and concern in the neighborhood with parking and traffic conditions. I think Van had offered a traffic analysis that showed that Rossmore Park had been overdeveloped through the decades, and that the amount of development at that park would not have been allowed at any adjacent city or any distant cities because of the lack of parking. And we still have a problem with that. Just Saturday, the league's a fine league, but there is a lot of parked cars, and I can't pull out of my driveway with any visibility of oncoming traffic, which just occurred Saturday. So we think the problem is still there. We understand that this board didn't create it, but through many years and decades, we've put in so many facilities at that park, from softball fields, tennis courts, volleyball courts, basketball courts, picnic grounds, horseshoe, community center. That level is not supported. And we're not asking you to deny anybody use of specific facilities. We don't want to take we're not proposing any facilities be taken out. What we've come forward with is what I consider a reasonable, very moderate suggestion, 2 games per week reduction, and that could be shifted from Saturday to a weekday. Michelle Fieldson, who's in the audience, did an analysis of this spring's schedule that showed there's vacant slots that could be moved, 2 vacant slots that could be moved from Saturday to a weekday. And the reason why we're asking for this is that if you can separate the games even more than they're now separated, you can clear those fields between games, and that would enable the park and the streets to be cleared of parked vehicles from one game before everybody arrives for the next game. So we think it's not injuring the league. We think it's a reasonable request, and we hope you consider it, although I understand the recommendation, and we'll certainly work with the board in any way that you ask.
Thank you. Since we have the board here from, the upcoming board, I'd like to introduce them. Why don't you come up, guys? This is your new president-elect of the LaSalle Softball League.
Hi.
Mike Wilson.
Okay. So I'm now going to let them have their opportunity to speak their point of view now.
Sure.
Okay. Obviously, what he's suggesting is Field 1 and Field 2 on Saturdays, possibly moving to Wednesdays, and I guess not even using Field 3. But
to understand our schedule, I mean, I understand that they used the schedule that we used this prior spring as evidence or to show that there's reasonable ways to move games from Saturday to weekday. The reason we set up our schedule that way is because our schedule starts in the late January, early February, springtime, which there are rain days that occur. So we allow those days that are gapped. So when rain days occur and we cannot play on the fields due to the conditions, that we have spaces available to us to be able to reschedule those days during the week. Reducing the games on Saturday, we've already spaced the games out as much as we possibly can to try to accommodate the parking. We've scheduled 6U games, which are lower impact to the fields, lower impact to the parking faster games that only last for an hour as the early games during the spring. That way that the parking gets turned over faster. So we've already made accommodations in terms of that to try to work with the neighbors to make sure that the parking gets turned over. You know, our position is we've been working with the neighbors, you know, all along. You know, we put up our signs to make sure that the neighbors are aware and that our population are aware that we are in a neighborhood and we want to be, you know, cognizant of that. And that, you know, the league provides, you know, a great opportunity for girls all around the community, not just Rossmore, but Los Alamitos and some of the surrounding communities. And we appreciate that ability to be able to play at Rossmore Park.
Okay.
You know, another way to space out games is to expand the hours that are available to play games at the park. If you started games at 8, maybe you could start games at 5 p.m. instead of having to stop them at 3. That would alleviate some of the traffic. I know in the city of Los Alamitos, they let games start later, later in the afternoon. That would alleviate some of the parking issues. My other concern that I have up there is you look at 39 spaces per field, 71 people per field. Are we assuming that everybody drives themselves to the park? I think if you have 2 people in a car, that's more than enough spaces per field. I'm not sure about that. You know, 39 times 2 is more than 71, right?
Well, yeah.
I'm just throwing that.
I'm
I'm not a math major, but I'm just looking at that going, I think people carpool sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I'm not ready to debate one thing or the other, but I wanted the public opportunity for both sides to express their point of view.
I do have just a quick question before you go. So you talked about wanting to leave the day games available in case there's rain issues. I guess my question would be, why not switch it and fill the day games, the weekday games, and leave the weekends available to shift games in if it rains during the week?
Well, you know, because the weekends provide the biggest opportunity for the girls to play and enjoy the day, right? It's very difficult. We start games right now in spring at 4 o'clock during the day. And as a person who works full-time, as most of you do, it's very difficult to get to those games at 4 o'clock in the day. So we, you know, obviously in setting up our spring schedule, we utilize the 10 weekend days that we get to put the majority of those games during those times. And then we fill in the weekday games when we can, right? Because playing early is very difficult to get to.
I have a question of our manager. You indicated that you concluded that the timeliness of this matter wasn't appropriate given the notice given to you and the briefing materials. When did you receive the materials in their entirety? When does that first day begin, and when is it that 2 weeks runs, and where is it in a policy that defines that it's got to be 2 weeks? Is it 10 business days, 10 consecutive calendar days? Please define that a little bit, because I don't know where that is, the foundation of that is.
Director Coletta, the policy is silent on whether it's business or calendar days. It would have been untimely in any event.
Let me hear what is the notice to the management here and the entirety of delivery of the materials, so we know when that day begins and when it ripens for 2 weeks. Is that's a reasonable time frame for it to be mulled over on the part of staff, and then of course the prize of the board and the community with the proper notice. I just want to know what that is.
The policy states that in order for an item to be placed on the agenda by a member of the public, it must be in writing and submitted no later than 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
Is that what the policy says?
Yes. Now, since it doesn't say business days, I'm assuming it's just calendar days. Even if we did not have that policy, I still would have needed more time to address it, and I'd also like to recommend that this issue be more thoroughly discussed in the LAGSL MOU committee. I know I attended, the last one I attended was in January, and just based on all the conversations and discussion that I've heard, I think all of these issues would be better addressed in a committee atmosphere. And
When did you receive the materials?
excuse me,
When did you receive the materials?
May 5th. And the
May 4th and 5th.
May 4th and May 5th, and the agenda went out on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking
It's just,
It's right window.
I'm looking at these emails that
or actually,
at least Ralph sent in. I understand that you're saying that you think this might be an MOU committee, but at the same time, with 2 weeks' notice, Ralph, if you want this to be on next agenda item, I put your request in soon. Likewise, if you ever want something brought to the board, that's your prerogative as well. But I understand that this is a complicated matter, excuse me. She did not have adequate time to prepare and give us all of her insight and her recommendations as well. So she's recommending to you that she think it's an MOU, but you still have the right at any time, 2 weeks prior to one of our board meetings, to get on the agenda. And obviously, we have a limited staff. The more time you give her to prepare, the more likely it will be a fruitful discussion. So I understand where she's going. I believe that this discussion should be tabled, and it will either be a board meeting or it will be an MOU committee, but eventually we'll talk about it. So my motion is to take the district's position and recommendation of tabling this discussion, but at the same time, I did at least want you in a public forum, since it was on here, to at least be able to put out your point of view to us. So I'm putting on that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There is a.
Wait, is there someone else?
Yeah, I
wanted to
think,
speak
Oh,
before.
another point of view. Please come forward.
Michelle Fields, and I live on Pemberton. As to the recommendation that this be discussed in the MOU meeting, as Director Rips is aware, there were several issues that were brought up in the MOU meetings. We were told repeatedly any district policy changes could not be made and could not be discussed at the MOU meeting. I have the MOU in front of me, and I appreciate that you all want to read that carefully, but the issue isn't with the MOU. The MOU clearly states 6 under, 8 under games on Saturdays from 8 to 4 at Rush Park. I'd like to address the issue he's talking about, weekday games not being played because of rain. In the past, makeups were done on Sunday. There were no Friday games whatsoever played except for one Friday. You don't need 10 rain makeup days. In addition, $35,000 was spent to upgrade Rush Park. Now, we've heard that it wasn't done specifically for LAGSL because there were other teams that utilized it. I do not believe that was what was put before this board. I do not believe the board would have authorized in any way $35,000 to be spent on a field for 6-year-olds to practice on a field.
The board didn't spend
nicer.
$35,000, ma'am.
We didn't authorize that.
We didn't.
RCSD
That wasn't done.
didn't spend a penny.
No,
On that.
for Rush Park. If
For Rush
you look,
Park?
yes, for Rush Park.
Yeah, you did.
If you, yes.
$35,000?
And, yes, and
Interesting. I
approximately
stand corrected. Okay.
approximately 3,800, 3,500, I'm not sure, was just spent
On the
to
backdrop,
incre-
yeah.
Yeah, on the
That was
backdrop.
to protect cars.
Because-
Right.
Because the provision, each MOU since 2001, part of the MOU has been LAGSL will look for alternate fields. They keep coming back and saying there's no alternate fields, there's no alternate fields. We provided an alternate field. 2 Saturdays out of the 9, only one 9 o'clock game was played at Rush Park. Now, we heard from John that 2 reasons. It's inconvenient to man the snack stand. Other communities have given the option for another field. That wouldn't be an issue. The second issue was maintenance. Well, originally, fields were dragged by hand, then they upgraded to a golf cart, and then they upgraded to a John Deere tractor. In the meantime, this community, RCSD, is subsidizing the loss of snack stand revenue to the tune of $3,000 to $4,000 each season. Los Alamitos doesn't contribute financially. Seal Beach doesn't contribute financially. I don't know what the statistics were for 2013, but in years past, fewer than 50% have been Rossmore residents. The rest is Los Alamitos and Seal Beach, yet they share no financial burden. And to say that, John also made the remark that because there's no snack stand, that there's an attrition rate with the younger girls. Well, in 2011, 6 and under teams, there were 8. In 2013, 6 and under, there were 8.
That's not what he said. I mean, I appreciate all what you're saying. He said they don't get the full impact without having the snack shack. The snack shack was part of it. He wasn't saying that was attrition.
No, that's what he said in our MOU meeting.
He said his message was that it was part of the feeling, part of the overall experience to have the snack shack. He wasn't implying, and maybe he said those words, but that wasn't the meaning of what he was saying. He was saying that the full experience of what the girls get over here without the snack shack affected their experience. That was the intent of what he was saying. I'm not denying all the other stuff, but that was the message that he was sharing in those meetings. That's what he was saying, that they didn't get the full experience if they were over
Those
here.
weren't his words, but
that
at
was the
any rate,
message.
what I'm saying is that since 2001, the intention has been to offload games on Saturdays. There's a 45-minute buffer between the games. Now, the girls finish their hour-and-a-half games, they go to the snack stand, and they want to stay and be with their friends and eat their food and play. That's part of what they do. Well, the next team are already arriving for their warm-up and to play their game. So basically, you've got 4 teams parking on one field, 4 teams parking on the other, and the congestion is, I mean, it goes without saying. And we keep hearing how nobody wants to do to Rush Park what's been done at Rossmore Park. And nobody does want to do that to Rush Park, but certainly playing one 9 o'clock game for 1 hour at Rush Park was not the intent of the MOU. So I just want, when this is reviewed, when the board looks at the MOU and they look at the documents that are provided here, when you look at Van's parking analysis and you can see the impact that is had on Rossmore Park, I don't think, the board has a responsibility, as I know you all know, to all of Rossmore residents, and the fact that it could be said that such conditions could be grandfathered in doesn't make it the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing briefly?
Briefly.
Because I think there was a couple misimpressions. I thought it was clear that taxpayers had spent $35,000 on the Rush Park field. So I just want to make it clear that taxpayers did invest significant amounts of money for this field, and it's badly underutilized. I don't think that was ever the intent, that this should go so poorly utilized, even as recently as this spring when an additional $3,000 to $5,000 was invested. Second, the number of parking slots at Rossmore Park has to accommodate not only softball, but 4 tennis courts, a basketball court, a volleyball court, and a large picnic area. So we have to, Van's analysis is not Van's full analysis. His full analysis will show you how inadequate parking is. Finally, we're not proposing any reductions on Field 3. There'll still be 4 games per Saturday. The only reductions occur on Fields 2 and 1 because Fields 3 serves younger girls. They play shorter games. They'll still play 4 games. On Fields 1 and Fields 2, it would go from 3 games to 2 games. That's hence the 2 games we're talking about moving to the weekday. I just want to make those clarifications. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We had a motion on the table to table this discussion for a future board meeting in a second, so I'm going to ask to vote. All in favor of tabling this for a future meeting, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
1 nay.
1 nay. So there you have it. Future discussion, I do believe that let's have a robust attachments of MOUs from previous years.
I just have one question for Ralph. Do you think that a committee meeting before it's on the agenda would be useful?
I'm always willing to.
Okay.
Been doing it for 10 years, and we won't stop now. But I think the board needs to address this.
Right. And I think also, though, having a committee meeting would help me more understand, everyone's issues and, okay. I'll work on getting that set up.
Okay. We're now at Section I, General Manager Items.
I would just like to say that I thoroughly enjoyed my first Rossmore Community Festival, and I got to meet a lot of the people of Rossmore, and I particularly enjoyed the car show. And I also want to say that we're in the process of getting our paperless agenda program in place, and I want the directors to look forward to future mock meetings so that they can get used to using their new iPads, saving paper, saving the trees. And that's it. Thank you.
We do not have any closed sessions tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over one. Board member items. As part of the agenda is reserved for board members to discuss issues that are not on the agenda and/or to request that specific items be placed on future agenda. No board action may be taken on these items that are not on the agenda. Start with you, Jeffrey.
I actually have none for tonight.
Okay. Treasurer Kaler.
I have none.
Okay. Alfred.
I have nothing, thank you.
Well, I better say something. I just wanted to thank our RCSD staff for ensuring that we had a smoothly run community festival. And also, since we're a tree community, I thought it was very imaginative. And I guess it was our arborist, Mary Kingman, that came up with this idea, for want of true knowledge, of having a tree identification scavenger hunt for the youth of the community to identify different trees in Rush Park. And it seemed like there was a lot of interest in it, so I'd be curious in the future to find out exactly how many people, how many of the youth actually turned in a form where they found or attempted to find the trees.
Well, I was at the booth, quite a few. They seemed to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I was there for a while, and there were a few that did that, and they were rather enamored of it, so I thought that was very nice. And that's all I have tonight.
Okay. I want to thank the sheriffs again for their hard work, Lieutenant, for coming in and giving us the quarterly crime. Sometimes we don't want to shoot the messenger, but sometimes we get concerned about our community, and especially the burglaries. I also want to commend our Los Alamitos School District elementary schools. If anyone read in the paper, they are the #1 ranked elementary school district in all of Orange County. And 4 of those schools happen to be right here in Rossmore. So my congratulations goes out to all those principals, all the teachers, staff, and all the parents, because it takes all of them working together to be a great school district. I do have a request of staff, and it's going to start off with a question first. I know that we've got a policy for tennis lessons, and we have our tennis pro on staff, and we have a contract with him.
Yes.
I have noticed at times that it seems like there's some boot camps and some physical trainers who are coming and using our facilities.
That's correct.
Do we have a policy for people who come and use our facilities in a commercial aspect, and what our policy is and isn't?
We do have a policy regarding obtaining a permit. We have had, I'm currently researching the whole issue, and it is a big issue, and it seems to be escalating, and it does concern me. And I've just been meaning to set the time aside to figure out how to go about it. But just from what I've gathered, the information I've gathered, some of these organizations have actually been approached and told that they needed a permit to use the parks, and they've flat out refused to do so. So I am in the process of...
But we do have a policy.
Yes.
Is it a strong enough policy? I think we need to revisit it.
Like I said, I need to revisit that. I need to research it. I need to see what we can do to enforce the policy. There's some work that I need to do.
Okay.
And I do feel like some of these groups are taking advantage as soon as they're opening up their cash register, and especially if they're refusing to pay our nominal permit fee.
Again, I'm in complete agreement. It's one thing for different meetup groups to get together and exercise as friends, but as soon as our facilities are used for commerce, everyone else has to pay. Our tennis pro has to pay. People who rent our facilities to have Mary Kay meetings have to pay. And again, it's not a small amount, and out of fairness, I would like to at least see the current one and maybe a proposed one. It might take a couple of months,
Right.
but I think we need to put this on our radar. And we might need some assistance on how we enforce our permits. And I know the lieutenant's here, but we might have an issue there as well that we might need your help. So at that point, that's the end of my comments. We don't have any adjournments. Wait,
I've got three things, quick.
wait, he's changed his mind. We're going to give...
Totally brain fart. Three
Sorry.
things. One, I just want to congratulate the new softball president. You're going to have your hands full. Good luck this next year. Two, high school grad night's coming up with them at Los Al, and it's going to be at the high school again, so please be on the lookout for that. I'm sure the Orange County Sheriffs will, but just as parents, just make sure to tell your kids, if you have high school seniors out there, to go to grad night and stay there, right? Do not leave. It's a great time, and you won't forget it. And lastly, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's this thing called the Sugar Beet Festival that I learned about this past weekend at the
Community Festival.
At the Community Festival, but it's a Sugar Beet Festival. It's on July 13th, and it's in Los Al, but it's to celebrate the history of Los Al, Seal Beach, and Rossmore, and it's a big, like, a day. It's an event, and it's sponsored by Larry Strother and the Taste of Los Al, and it benefits the schools and the communities and everything. It's coming up on July 13th, so I just thought I'd...
He's the same gentleman that wrote the book about the history of Los Alamitos and Rossmore.
Yeah, so I just thought I'd mention that.
Okay.
So that's all I got.
All right. At this point, is there a motion for adjournment?
So motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Staying 4 9 o'clock?